All right, so we are here at Legal Week 2019 in New York City on the Hilton, and I'm sitting here with Andy Macdonald, who is the CEO of Consilio. I'm going to give Andy a chance to introduce himself, but I want to say that the most underreported deal of 2018 was the Consilio acquisition of Advanced Discovery. For the life of me, I don't know why it's not been written about more. It was a massive deal, and I'm hoping today to learn more about, number one, why the rest of the industry does not seem to be saying the same things that I'm seeing, and I'm looking forward to hearing that from Andy. But then also kind of to see where you see the industry going from here. So first of all, thank you for joining me. As I said before, I know everyone wants a piece of your time at this conference, and I'm thrilled that we got a chance to catch up.
You get top billing.
Fair enough.
Happy to be here.
Fair enough. So I want to start with this. I ask almost everyone, how'd you get into e-discovery? But you come from a private equity background, and you are a private equity guy and have been for many years. Talk about your background a little bit.
It's started off as an entrepreneur and founding a company that focused in outsourced medical services, and then with that we merged it with a couple of other businesses and went public in 2002 as First Advantage. And that's when I got my first taste of sort of building through acquisitions. We did nearly 60 acquisitions at First Advantage in 5 years.
When you started a company, did you ever think
No.
in a million years you were going to be acquiring? You were probably just kind of focused on
making
payroll. How do I make payroll?
Yeah. No, and it was obviously it was not in anything to do with legal services. It just sort of happened this way. And I have kids now who are applying to college, and they don't know what they want to be when they grow up. And I reminded them that I was 30 before I even occurred to me that I might start thinking about something that I want to be.
The fact that you come from a private equity background is this major Consilio deal that happened over the last year. Now I know, again, from my perspective, it was highly underreported, and I don't know if that was something that you're happy about or not. I know that anytime Elevate buys a small law firm or one of the big four buy a small law firm, the blogosphere and the journalists kind of go wild for it. And I think there was something with Consilio where it was like, oh, yeah, we knew Consilio was a big company, and we've heard of them before, and this isn't a big four company buying a law firm, so it's not necessarily going to make headlines. But I know that the size of this deal was massive, right? That much we know. And I know you didn't disclose numbers, but the companies that you absorbed were huge companies in their own right, having already, Advanced Discovery had already done acquisitions themselves. Private equity money is very, very discerning and deliberate. The fact that they made an investment suggests to me that they see much bigger upside for Consilio than perhaps others see. And I know that there's a tendency to say, oh, industry consolidation, e-discovery consolidation. To me, this deal looked like a lot more than consolidation.
It was an interesting deal, and I think I was surprised that it didn't get the type of coverage. Not disappointed, but surprised. And one of the reasons was it was not just an acquisition of Advanced Discovery. We recapped our prior sponsor out with this deal. So this in the world of investors is sort of like the triple Lindy, to be able to negotiate. We negotiated 2 deals. We had one sponsor, which was Shamrock. They were great partners. They were not in a position to go forward with the Advanced Discovery acquisition. We partnered with GI, and the thought was we're going to take out we're going to recapitalize Shamrock out and do the Advanced Discovery acquisition, and they all have to close within 30 days. And that all happened from start to finish in less than 2 months. So I was pretty excited just by the mechanics of it happening. I was less concerned about how it was perceived, but to me, it was fundamentally a game changer for Consilio in terms of the amount of size that we acquired through the Advanced Discovery acquisition. The piece that I think you're forgetting about, which is really I think even the more bold statement of where we stand with our partners, is we did the Discover Ready acquisition less than 6 months later,
right.
And that company was similar in size to Advanced Discovery. And being in a position to do 2 deals that quickly, it required a leap of faith from our sponsors, from our lenders, and I think that they had a sense of what we were trying to accomplish. The speed and the precision with which we began the integration process with Advanced Discovery, I think, gave them a little bit of faith to continue on with the next deal.
Yeah. So my background, and we've discussed before, I was a corporate attorney at Schulte before I went off and started my own companies. But all of our clients were private equity. And so I know how private equity companies evaluate deals. I know what they're looking for. I know the kind of returns they're looking for. To me, it sounds like they look at Consilio as a potential competitor to Big Four, and that we might start seeing companies like Consilio and Epic that didn't come from a Big Four accounting background now start to make the move where they're competing against some of those companies. And we always talk about the Big Four encroaching on legal. What we never talk about is legal, and I said Consilio is legal, encroaching on Big Four. Do you think that's what they're looking at?
I don't think so. I think that's a pretty big leap in terms of the resources and the talent that we have today. And I am pretty much focused on keeping it simple. Keeping it simple. To contemplate taking what is a great e-discovery company and turning it into a global consulting firm on any basis that would compete with the Big Four would just not. It would be something bigger than me. I think what our investors see is a market that is fragmented, that is growing, and that it requires a significant amount of capital to operate at scale, but once you're at scale, it's very easy to accretively add on new opportunities.
Scale up.
And I think that the scale required, some folks just aren't going to be in a position to raise the capital to do it. So there's going to be good values out there in terms of acquisitions. So that's what they see is really a chance to grow in a specific vertical that has tremendous upside.
Sure.
I mean, this is a global market that we can debate the numbers, call it 8 to 12 billion. No one really has 10% market share. There's significant upside just with our own little business.
Sure. And do you think that 5 years from now we'll still say e-discovery provider Consilio, or you said global consulting? How are we going to describe Consilio 5 and 10 years from now?
Look, I would think that it's much more broadly in the legal services space. Mm-hmm. I don't see us moving into global consulting. That requires a different level of expertise that would be massive for us in terms of the talent.
You want to stay in your lane.
Well, I want to do well by my investors and by our employees as efficiently as possible, and I know what we're good at, and I fundamentally want to sell more stuff to the same people that I currently deal with, or find a way to use the factories that we have with minimal effort to deliver other services, and that's not what a consulting practice would be for us.
Sure.
So we do see lots of opportunities in legal process outsourcing, even in some standard BPO type work, but fundamentally, I don't see us getting too far afield from what we're doing right now. The upside is still pretty remarkable, and I don't want to necessarily go out and make a market.
And you have great experience in business process outsourcing. I mean, your other businesses have succeeded in large part because of that, and you're able to use that equation here.
Look, I think what we number one, we have 3,000 employees who are really, really good at delivering great service experiences in the world of e-discovery. But we also have within that group a subset of employees that's really good at finding acquisitions and integrating them as quickly and as efficiently as possible. And that skill can work in a lot of different businesses. And so from my perspective, I'm not a lawyer. I don't have a long-term experience in the world of e-discovery, but what I do have is some sense of what it takes to put businesses together and eliminate what I would say are the hurdles to operational excellence.
So this is the other reason I find it really interesting, and I started off by saying you are a private equity guy. Now I know again that started off as an entrepreneur, but you've been through the acquisition process so many times, and one of the places that we're in the verticals that we're seeing e-discovery companies, and I know Consilio is there as well, moving into is, for instance, the world of contracts. I imagine that you look at many of the deals that you've done on the PE side and said, why did I need to have my law firm doing that work? Why did I need to have them pulling clauses out? Maybe that's work that we could have been doing, by Consilio. And I think that's a really interesting thing, because as much as I know Consilio is at all the industry events, I see you guys at Clock, I see you guys at the ACC, I see you talking to major corporations, but I also think about the Shamrocks of the world,
Right.
the Cerberuses of the world, and I think, if only there was someone who understood that a lot of those companies out there could utilize a lot of these services. And look, private equity companies have a very good track record of being very efficient, of getting rid of excess where necessary, and thinking along those lines. And I've got to believe that experience is certainly instructive of what you're doing right now,
100%.
moving out of e-discovery and into the corporate sector.
Yeah, I think as we start looking at our relationships shifting from individual practice departments at a law firm to corporate legal departments, we're exposed to what I think is a lot of inefficiency in their operations. And to the extent that we can do something to help improve the efficiency, either with lower cost employees or technology, we're all about that. And the contracts piece is interesting because even when we do the deals, we write the checks to the lawyers, and we do it because we're in a hurry. And this is the type of thing where when you want to get a deal done, you don't care. Nevertheless, some forethought and some planning, I think, creates an opportunity for someone else to come in and do that a little bit more efficiently.
Yeah. So, is Consilio right now that you can share with me working with any private equity clients? Have you been able to break in there? And what's that going to take? Because you're right. The one thing I always tell people about the PE deals is they don't typically ask a lot of questions about the bills. Like, they want to get these deals done.
That's right.
And the legal fees are such a small drop in the bucket of the deal, of typical deal size, when you start getting up into the $1 billion plus deals. But do you think we're going to start seeing
Yes.
e-discovery vendors working with PE funds?
Well, I think you'll certainly see the PE funds who, while they may not spend on individual deals a significant amount of money as it relates to the total deal on legal fees, when they add up their firm-wide legal fees, they begin to see opportunities to have influence on how decisions get made. And we certainly saw that with Shamrock, that they were willing to go to their firms that were doing their legal work and say, we'd really like you to consider Consilio, strongly consider Consilio for some of that type of work.
I'm sure the law firms were just thrilled about that.
You know what? I don't think they minded, because to a certain degree, unless we were going to do something that was going to materially, reviewing contracts isn't where they were making the big bulk of their money on these
Right.
transactions, so that it's not something that caused them problem. And they could also say, if they could direct some discovery work our way and keep their relationship with a financial sponsor in good standing, that they'd be happy to do that.
Imagine that you were, running a firm as managing partner, law firm, knowing what it is about the growth of companies in your space, like a Consilio. How would you be thinking about the next 5 years? What would you be thinking, if you knew that, listen, these companies exist, we can't look the other way on this anymore? Or how would you react?
Well, as someone who's never practiced law or worked at a law firm, I don't want to presume to know how their business operates, but I do.
But you've worked with a lot of law
But
firms.
I do believe that most of the evolved law firms already understand what's happening, and they're not counting on what we do as a growth area for them. And in fact, they probably have made the decision that it makes great sense to find ways to partner with companies like Consilio so that they can focus on delivering a better experience to their clients through strategic thinking and problem solving that is probably more centralized to the practice of law than reviewing one-off documents and processing and hosting data.
Got it.
Does that make sense?
It makes all the sense in the world, and I think we are seeing a lot of those trends. I do think there are law firms that are asking the question of, okay, well, are we sure that we wanted to give up on that space? But I think that for most firms, unless you've had a really robust litigation support group, unless you've really been investing in that, you can't kind of turn this on quickly. You can't just hire a talented staff and bring this stuff in house. Either you made the decision 7 to 10 years ago, we're going to cling to this, or you didn't. I think at this point, but I do think that there's a very interesting question for law firms in the corporate space that are so dependent on associate leverage and having 4 associates for every partner, and essentially have the partner justify his rates by billing out associates on menial work. I don't know that that is going to continue to work.
Yeah,
I think you already see firms like, for Kirkland as an example, they have much lower associate leverage. They're hiring many more senior attorneys, making them partner earlier to kind of incentivize them staying. I think we might start seeing a lot more of that, or at least the rethinking of the role of the junior associate. Because just giving menial work to them, to have them do it, I mean, at this point, it's hard to justify that.
Yeah, and that seems to make sense to me. Again, I've not spent a lot of time inside of a law firm, but I do think there's been a disintermediation to say, if I hire a law firm, what is it I'm hiring them to do? And what are the other things they might be doing in the past that aren't necessarily what I hired them for? And if there's a way to deliver that service more efficiently, I as a client would expect that they would support me in that decision.
Sure. One of the things I mentioned before is that I see Consilio now at a lot of the industry events that are focused around either in-house counsel or legal ops. I know you guys have a legal ops division.
Right.
Have you seen a change? And I don't ask this as a loaded question. If this was always the case, I'm curious, but anecdotally, it seems to me that there's now a change, whereas the e-discovery providers and the service providers typically operated through the law firm as the quarterback of any major issue, and were kind of kept at arm's distance from the corporation, from the general counsel. It now feels like Consilio and its peer companies have a seat at the table with the general counsel, with the head of legal operations, and that to me looks like a fundamental change. Is it as much of a change as I'm
I think
describing?
It is. I think that as the dollar volumes began to grow, it was the only prudent thing for corporations to do was to begin to say, what can I do to manage, control, and understand this expense? And I think as they began to dabble in that, it wasn't just legal operations. They brought their friend procurement to the table, and audit to the table, and security to the table, and they began to realize that prior to their level of involvement, an e-discovery company could have been running projects out of a garage with corporate data sitting there on an individual server with no backup and no real security around it.
I'm sure there were some that were doing it out of garages.
So the level of compliance and security audits that we go through prior to even working with companies is we're at the point of no return. I want to say that last year we did 73 audits where we had to be present as our clients came to audit our facilities, our data centers, our practices, and that's just not going to change. And so I believe that once they began to realize we need to stay on top of where our data is, and we want to understand what the cost component of this is, they've gotten their claws into it. And so to the extent we're at the table, I don't think it diminishes the role of outside counsel. It just probably, I would think, if I'm being honest, the more evolved law firms probably appreciate it.
So this is Legal Tech Conference, because I know it was Legal Tech, originally Legal Week. This is which conference number for you?
You'd be surprised. It's not that much. I think it's 5.
This is only, I think, my 4th year here,
yeah.
So it's not. And again, I know you didn't get your start in e-discovery.
Yeah.
I was talking to David Hasman before from Bricker. He started when he was in high school,
right?
Yeah. Like it's not the same trajectory. I'm curious though, like you're coming here. Do you ever get to go look at the floor and see interesting technology companies? Has anything caught your eye right now as standing out? I know that's putting you on the spot.
No, I haven't. I have not been on the floor. I probably will not. And I'll tell you, the reason being is day in and day out, I get called by investment bankers, other private equity sponsors, all looking to say, hey, look at this company, take a look at this technology, that we see it day in and day out. And if there's something that I've seen that I would like to sort of learn more about, I'll try to find a way to be in a suite like the one you're in and have a private conversation. I generally, when I have been on the floor, I find it hard to differentiate anyone from anything, including my own company. Which
they all offer cutting-edge innovative solutions
with the best client experience at the most favorable prices.
At the most favorable prices.
With the world-class project managers. And I agree that it's very hard. And so as a person who's in the business, it's hard for me to differentiate. I can only imagine how the consumer of our service feels. And that's not to denigrate what's going on downstairs. I find that an individual conversation is more effective for me.
Well, look, that's how I've been doing Legal Week for years, is individual conversations just like this one. I'm thrilled that I got a chance to follow up with you and interview you. I'm going to be back in D.C. again this summer. We're going to have to do it again on a hot DC day, and where I come in sweated through on both sides to
and as I've told you, my family trip, we are coming to Israel too, so we may come get you before you get us.
I tell everyone who comes, and like the funny thing is, like, you know, people constantly tell me, like, how many people are there in this legal tech industry that you're always taking people around the country? I said, listen, they know who to look for when they come.
Perfect.
So Andy, great having you on for an interview.
Thank you very much.
Really, thanks for sharing your time with us.
Enjoyed it.